Matthew, did your question get answered about Connecticut GOP?
No, actually, and it kind of goes more to what Brian was talking about. You know, we seem to see a schism being created in the GOP. You're seeing it at the federal level and you're seeing it at the state level. And I guess I would just look for you guys' thoughts on, you know, how you see that playing out. I mean, because I think what you see is there's a lot of the establishment Republicans, and now you're seeing conservatives, Tea Party types in two different camps.
Yeah. There's only one way, there's only one path to victory, and it's through unity, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
There's not enough of us to have multiple factions going on. We have to have all the Republicans on the same page and the unaffiliated, a very large portion of unaffiliated voters in order to beat Democrats. I think one of my tasks as I go across the state of Connecticut is to try to see if somehow we can't bridge some of the divides that we have. I'm not saying you have to support a candidate who did not perform to what your expectations are of an elected official, but we need to find candidates and we need to find common ground so that we can support one another.
And that's what our opposition does real well.
See, for some of us, when you see what almost 50% of the GOP voted for this gun law, for some of us, that's too big of a bridge to cross.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
I think you have to look at also, when you look at the map in terms of the votes, there's a very telling map that was published in the Hartford Courant, and you see how people voted. You saw Republicans and Democrats alike voted against that in eastern Connecticut, and I think there was a strong understanding in our region of how critical this issue is. You know, I have a gun permit, I'm an NRA member, so I just looked at the legislation, and when we were voting on it, there were flaws in the legislation when we were voting on it.
Absolutely.
So, you know, one of the things that it did was that the temporary permit process said you can only apply for a temporary permit once per year. And it was very poorly conceived. Anybody who's applied and gotten a temporary permit knows what could potentially happen if somehow they were late in going to, you know, get their permanent permit, or, you know, they would have to start from ground zero and go through the training all over again, because the training is only good for so long. So there was a lot of people who didn't really understand what they were doing when they were putting together that legislation.
and it should have been done differently, you know. Basically, the day before the vote, on the Public Safety Committee, Steve Dargan, who's the chairman, and I was there, and we had State Police, Homeland Security come in to talk about the bill and to answer the questions. It was just a room, the Public Safety conference room. And Barbara, she's a sergeant, I don't even remember her last name, Mater, I believe. She probably knows more about state gun laws than everybody in Connecticut. And she asked some tough questions, because you can't, the bill was basically unenforceable in the way it was. And for example, on magazines, how do you tell when somebody bought a magazine? There's no serial numbers on a magazine, so you can't tell. So she asked those kind of questions. And she was asking them to me and Steve, because we were the committee members, and we finally told her, well, we haven't seen the bill either. And we're the Public Safety Committee. So we had the two attorneys in the room who had helped draft the bill, one Republican and one Democrat, and we had them answer the questions. But in a lot of cases, they couldn't answer it. They didn't know. They said, well, we know there's loose ends, and we'll tie it up together when we pass the bill. And that's sounded a lot like what Nancy Pelosi said today. You know, when I was sitting there, I'm thinking, not that she said it to me, but what she said, that sounded like the same kind of an answer. So it was poorly done. We should have had, obviously, if you're going to do something like that, you have to have the people who've been to the regulating room to say to you, this will work, this is unenforceable, this is not doable. We did none of that. And that's why it's such a mess, and that's why we came back with that second bill that straightened out some of it. But basically, you know, the whole premise of the bill is wrong.
You still have 15 seconds.
That's it.